Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. My name is Don Irvine, your host, and joined by my co-host, as always, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps. It's hard to say champs, but they certainly would not call us that, even after the debt ceiling fiasco for the president. Neanderthal, semi-fascists, and of course those dog-faced bunny soldiers.
That's right. That's right. Okay, weather report here. You know, can I?
You
Let me
can't
ask.
complain, man. If you complaining about this, you're not going to be happy with the weather.
I just want I want to ask you something though. It's like, has it been unusually cool though in the mornings?
Yeah,
For the year. It's
swimming
just,
pool is open now, and I'm not jumping in until we see
I see the
adjustment.
temperatures getting into the 80s and maybe even to 90 on Friday, but the mornings have been, like 45 to 50. And I'm like,
Yeah, I go running in the morning, and it's still pretty cool. It feels
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think my wife thought I was some kind of chicken or something like that because she went out, was it on a Saturday or something? I don't know. She decided she'd take a walk for the first time in quite a while. And the temperature was like, I don't know, 45 or 47. And she's just like, my thing is like, you better, I want 55 and sun before I do that, just so as I'm walking to get heated up. She was back within 10 minutes. Her hands were cold. Everything's like, she couldn't do it. I'm like, yeah, see, I set certain parameters here because I just know what it's like. Ugh.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost June for heaven's sakes, and
yeah. I think it's been a very cool spring. It was a very cool fall, right? Remember, it got cold like the first day of fall, and it was pretty much cold the rest of the fall. In the winter, was mild. It was on the mild side.
yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really complaining too much. I mean, it's a little cool in the morning for me when I head out to the gym, but for the when I have to cut the grass, I don't really want 90 degrees and 90% humidity anyway. So this is nice, and I've had I borrowed a friend's power pressure washer, and it was like, man, it's like I didn't realize how much grime had built up on my steps, my concrete steps.
yeah.
Okay, this is going to take a while. And, iPhones now, they also measure sound level.
Mm-hmm.
And this sucker was like screeching. And I'm like, man, it's really high. And I noticed this morning, it was like, it showed that little graph. It's like, between this time and this time, it was like, it had more than, I don't know, 95 decibels or whatever. I mean,
A lot of decibels.
yeah. So I'm like, okay, I am going to wear my over the ear protection when I go and attack this the next time, because it was definitely really, really noisy. And at my age,
We went to Quantico one time when I was on the hill, right? And we do all this, and this Marine was telling us whatever, and he talked very loud. Someone goes, "Why do you talk so loud?" He goes, "All Marines are hard of hearing, sir." This thing's been blowing up,
I mean, people who are, who've been in the radio industry and things like that, the talk show people, they've
Yeah.
had, when they were in DJs, they wear headphones, they wear them for hours and hours a day. Most of them, if not all of them, are pretty much hard of hearing now, right?
Yeah.
It has damaged their hearing
That's right.
over time. So yeah, then you get age and everything else, and voila. And here we are. All right. Okay. So you kind of alluded to the debt ceiling in the intro there. So we'll go there. Republicans are, hardcore conservative Republicans are all up in arms about this thing, and then your wonderful friend Jen Rubin, did this article I saw in the Post about how how great Biden is on deal making and things like this. And this is another example of this. I'm like,
it's pretty funny. Okay, so I have people like arguing with me on the internet about, oh no, they got their clocks clean. Biden mopped the floor. And I'm like, okay, Biden's position was that he would not negotiate at all, right? You want a clean debt ceiling. You pass a bill that raises the debt and send it to me, and I'll sign it. No exceptions. I don't want to see another line on that bill other than raise the debt ceiling. Right? He was emphatic about that. We don't negotiate with terrorists and this and that and the other. Okay, so we got to the, about 3 or 4 weeks out, right? We were still 3 weeks out. We're still not there yet. I mean, this is supposed to be like, we have until June 6th, right? So we're not, it's about a week away still, right? And they've seen these polls now where independents are, it's about 60-40 on the side of the Republicans, that they need to make a deal that limits spending, limits the growth of spending, starts us back down the hill from this mountain of debt, right? Does this do it? It does take steps in that direction, right? But he saw those polls and he changed his tune and he decided to negotiate, get the best deal he did. And, the Republicans still did pretty well, right? You have cuts, you have caps, you have a promise, it can't go above a certain area. So they say, oh, there's not even a debt ceiling anymore. There's, what we have now plus 1% is effectively the debt ceiling, right? Because that's what they agreed to. So, and I kind of like that it's a floating figure and not, a hard dollar amount to where, it is negotiable and move aroundable, if the time shall come. In September, if you owe student loan debts, you will be starting back to repay them, right? But under provisions of this legislation, no more using that to try to, buy votes with kids and all this stuff. So, it was a resounding victory for the Republicans, and you look at the trajectory of this, right? What usually happens in these things is that, the Democrats, they have the media, completely on their side, right? So they play chicken with you and they wait you out. And at the end of it, the public is like, wow, you guys shut down the government. You can't even work this out. You got to work this out. So they worked something out without that pressure, against with a president who had vowed he wasn't going to work out anything with anybody. So I think, the whole tenor of this, and, some credit goes to Biden for, realizing that he was lost and he needed to fix it. So, I think a good thing happened here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I mean, it's like, we both have seen all the complaints by, some people on the Freedom Caucus. There's several Republicans who said they're not going to vote for this, but I think their Democrats are going to fill in the hole, and take this, push this over the top anyway, because they know they need to see it get done. I mean,
right. The Democrats in districts Trump won and so forth, they need this vote. They're looking forward to saying they were on the side of sanity and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, it's a tool for them. And some of it, we're not done, right? It hasn't been agreed on, right? So, like, for instance, Kat Cammack, who's a good congresswoman, doesn't want to do it because she wanted the REINS Act in there, which says any economically significant regulation, which right now is defined as $100 million of economic impact or more, that Congress must take an up or down vote on that regulation. So, that moves a lot of power, away from the executive to the legislative and away from the unelected to the elected. So, which I'm always in favor of the people I vote for make the decisions, right? That way, if I don't like the decisions, I can argue with convince my friends to vote against them and get them bounced out of office, right? So, that's a very positive thing, and I hope she gets it. They stripped it out of the bill. It was in the bill, and that was one of the things that McCarthy gave on, and that's what it would take to secure her vote. I don't know how necessary her in particular vote is, but if it becomes necessary, you may see that back in there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we've talked about this when this was going through its machinations a couple of weeks ago, and I think we were in agreement that really, McCarthy and the Republicans really kind of, had the Democrats right where they wanted them, more or less. This was not a case of where the Republicans had to yield. The Democrats are going to have to yield on this to some degree in order to get some kind of agreement through there. That all of Schumer's, like, this is dead in arrival kind of stuff. All this talk, the Biden thing, like, I'm only going to sign a clean debt ceiling bill, like you said. All this stuff. There was no way that they weren't going to have to move off their position. They just didn't. They didn't have enough power to be able to deal with this. So this was good. Yeah.
I think another thing that happened that was kind of key to it, though, is the House passed legislation. So when you're saying, y'all aren't doing anything, no, y'all aren't doing anything. Well, the House could say, hey, we passed legislation. We have something down on paper that we said we want. So yeah, I think that Bob makes the point here. They outperformed expectations, is a huge point, right? There was thought that, he would fold and we would get nothing, and Republicans would be in a worse situation than they were to start with, and so forth. He did a good job. He's got to get across the finish line, which he hasn't quite done. But I mean, after managing the process by which he became speaker, I kind of have confidence that he can do this, right? I kind of have confidence he's going to get this across.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so, and anybody who's really complaining about the things that we didn't get from the original bill, it's like, exactly how much of this did you expect? You weren't there. Nothing gets 100% through. This is all part of negotiation. We know that there's give and take. You put things on a lot of your legislation that that you'll probably have to get rid of, but it becomes a negotiating point, and you go back and forth, and then you come up with something, and they pass something. You and I don't always agree that everything they do is exactly the way we want it done, but you mentioned several things. And look, I mean, on the student loan thing, it does kind of give a final definitive deadline. I mean, we still have the Supreme Court yet to rule on this, but none more song and dance by the Biden administration about all this forbearance, right?
Right.
They changed the baseline for some of this welfare stuff. I mean, they raised the work requirement, which Democrats really, really, really hate. They kind of took away the weapon, the little chicanery that states do to throw money at people to say, oh, well, they're employed because they got $20 or $10 and stuff like that, and they can't stockpile these credits and these waivers and all of this stuff. So they did a lot of good things in this. They did
a lot of cleaning up the barn.
Yeah, and I mean, do I have a lot of hope that we're really going to, I see, we always get these 10-year projections. It's going to increase or decrease or whatever. But it is kind of a thing. It's like we go through this. I'm like, I don't really have a lot of hope that that's actually going to be the final product in 10 years, but it's a step in the right direction. It's kind of, the Republicans are showing that they're finally going back and paying attention again to fiscal matters, which they kind of ignored for several years. So that, this is good. And as you mentioned, Bob's point here, McCarthy, for all the people who are complaining about McCarthy, he did a good job here of holding. Yeah. He held that caucus together to get that vote, and pull that thing together. They've got they're going to, they've got the pipeline in West Virginia that they're finally going to, looks like they're going to get over the finish line, right?
That's right.
No more of this garbage and stuff like that. So you know that the progressives, the left, they hate a lot of things in there. They're mad at Biden. They're mad at a lot of other people.
A lot of their energy stuff is on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, sure, we didn't get as much maybe out of the IRS, or we didn't take a lot of big chunk out of some other things, but this is progress for us. Yeah. This is progress.
Yeah,
and this whole thing about this. Jen Rubin's column was so laughable about trying to go to talking about how, Biden did such a good job on this. It's like, are you, what are you drinking? What are you smoking?
Well, I mean, the leftists, they get that journalist list still goes out, right? There's still somebody out there putting out talking points every day. Hey guys, everybody go out and use this phrasing and make these declarations, right? It's still happening because you can tell the way the stories unfold and the wording and the reasoning is all the same, that it all came from one source, right? And so the word now is to declare Biden the unadorned victor. And so I've had 2 or 3 discussions with people on the internet about it, and it's like, okay, what was his victory? He got everything he wanted. Okay, well, he said he wanted nothing but a clean bill. So anything in that thing beyond a clean bill is not what Biden wanted, right? That is him capitulating that there's one more thing in that bill besides a clean debt ceiling is a huge capitulation on the part of the president, right? And he said, oh, we're not dealing with terrorists. We're not dealing with hostage takers, this and that and the other. They'll collapse the economy. They hate America, right? He sat down and made a grubby deal that didn't even favor him to just get out of the way of, the America haters of the other party or whatever, right? He ended up succumbing to given to him in every way almost he could.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, as you said, I mean, it's not a done deal yet. They've got to get the vote, and, there's still some more things going on there. But I think in terms of the debt ceiling, I think we're in pretty good shape overall. I think this, in terms of getting it passed and taking care of obligations, My wife.
You're also isolating the yahoos in both parties, the people who actually prevent progress in both parties. Their name is on a pretty short list now. You can kind of see who they are.
Yeah. So we'll hopefully everything will get kind of wrapped up here, and they'll put it back, and it's in the Democrats, in Biden's best interest. I mean, he needs to get this thing behind him anyway as they head into this campaign. He doesn't need this thing hanging over him, and he surely doesn't need any kind of talk about default, because he's the point guy. I mean, in the end, he's the president. If he wants to take, he needs to take responsibility. You don't want to be the guy that has to deal with this. So
I love that. Like their like rhetoric was just didn't miss the point of this, right? Which that does usually happen with Democrats, but like they were saying, Trump added $7 trillion to the deficit. Biden's added $11 trillion to the deficit, right? So it's like you can't claim that this is Trump's fault,
right? Yeah, I mean it's a
standard line,
Yeah, I mean Trump was terrible when it came to stuff like this, but once Biden got into office, it was back to business as normal, and it really ballooned.
Yeah, well, Trump's thing was, he fought for the wall, right? And if you look back, because I've tracked the polling history, I keep up with that, and the only time Trump was really in trouble in the polls the entire time he was president was during the debt ceiling fight, when he tried to get the border wall money and close the government, because he wouldn't give in on that, right? Nancy wouldn't put it in the bill, and he would give it up. So, they signed the bill without it, reopened the government. He found a way around it to get most of the funding he needed, right? And after that, his posture on deal making was, to come up with something that they would sign and just keep it moving. We're not having that fight. We'll fight that later. And so that's what they did. And so, these are Pelosi. It's funny because the Democrats want to raise it, but basically what we passed was Pelosi's priority. So now you're saying Pelosi's priorities were a bad idea.
Yeah, and part of the thing with Trump is that, I mean, he had a pandemic, he had to deal with, which required,
right.
we spent a lot of money. Biden, on the other hand, he comes in and he just piles on unnecessarily.
Right. He had it set up for recovery. He had it on a guide path to recovery, and then he blew it. Yeah, that's right. Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody who'll point a camera at him.
Oh, yeah,
Notice if you're one of those people, the people pointing the camera at you are not generally your friends, right? I mean, who's pointing a camera at Chip Roy now? It's not Fox News. It's not Newsmax, right? It's CNN, MSDNC, because they want to show how crazy he is, right? Which is, he helps them with.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, we're in a completely different era than when we grew up, Brian. I mean, in terms of, we've got more media, more ways of getting media, and it's not ABC, NBC, and CBS anymore. We've got cable news, and thanks to social media and all the different things you can do with social media, whether or not it's YouTube or you want to do something on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you can go off and do that. So, in a lot of ways, we have created, this whole space has created more of those wingnuts, those yahoos. As a result of that, they go off and they find a following, right?
That's right.
They might not have many, if any, facts at their disposal, but there's always a group of people who will follow them, and stuff like that. And all this talk about, debt ceiling and all these other things, it's like, I ignore a lot of this. I don't really worry. I go about my business. I didn't change my, I didn't run and say, I've got to withdraw my investments and stuff like that. But my wife was talking to a friend of hers who lives up in New Hampshire with her daughter, and they were chatting, and she cashed out a bond, some kind of bond, because she was worried she wasn't going to get the interest on it or something like that. She felt she's not really politically astute, and so she hears the stuff that the media spits out, and she panics.
Yeah,
and
don't understand.
I think she got the money she paid for the bond out. I mean, she cashed out at or a little over par, so she didn't get hurt by that. but I don't know whether or not she can buy another bond quite like that if she wanted to again. Sometimes you cash out of an investment. The next time you go back in, you can't earn as much on that type of investment. Things have changed. So it's hard to say. But this is what happens. All this media stuff that feeds in there, and they give you these doomsday scenarios. It's like, we're going to be okay. We'll figure this out. You don't have to go out there and just start cashing out your bonds and putting your money under your mattresses. Okay. Give me a break. But this is the world we live in, thanks to all this media and all this, misinformation that goes on. All right. So next, really is all of this backlash on Pride. All these retailers have jumped headfirst into all of this stuff. At first, with the bud thing and the transgender in the can, which was a stupid thing, I think, to begin with. And Bud is definitely, Anheuser. I guess it's Anheuser-Busch, InBev, because they're not. It's not. They merged several years ago. They've taken a beating for this. I mean, they've gone out and they've paid distributors who faced a lot of backlash from customers and all kinds of things. It's reverberated. They put the people in charge of that marketing campaign on leave, which probably means is that they're never returning to those roles ever again. They'll quietly leave the company somehow, pay them off, and they'll just get totally dismissed at some point in time. But Target had a big backlash with theirs. Target. And Kohl's has had some issues too. And I just look, retailers, the people who are behind these things, I mean, they have buyers who go out there and make these decisions about, we want to have this and we want to do this. But this consumer backlash has surprised even me as to how fierce it's been.
Yeah, me too. I've been surprised at how fierce and how sustained it's been and how thorough. Like anytime this stuff pops up, they are on it, right? They're on it hard. They're on it until the people feel regret about it. I think the most interesting one, and it doesn't really, I guess I'll just go in order here. But so, Target has been this way, so to speak, for a while. Target's a pretty woke corporation. So this is sort of a logical run on to them. Leftists are becoming in charge of Walmart, which is changing Walmart in this way. You will see that, and you're beginning to see some protest on that. Who else did you mention? There was somebody else.
Kohl's just got it. Kohl's. They just threw Kohl's into the mix.
Kohl's, right. Kohl's that's a fairly recent development that they've been in trouble for it, right? So I think there's things to separate out here, right? So Target had the line of closing from the Satanist guy, and he was promoting all kind of stuff that shouldn't be promoted. And you can not buy, it's one thing. It's like, I don't like, a certain kind of jeans. I just don't have to pass those jeans or consider them in my buying, so that, this is not what all customers are doing here. They're actually, raising Cain with the supervisors of the store and vowing, planning and organizing boycotts and so forth. So, I mean, you're getting sustained, organized activity against this. And the corporations are listening. They are taking this into account. Now, it's unclear what they're doing with it. Like Chick-fil-A, I guess, yesterday, right, the chairman of Chick-fil-A announced that they're going to start a DEI department and get all that, get themselves all cool on that. Okay, I don't know, what is Chick-fil-A? Is it publicly held? I don't even know, right?
No, Chick-fil-A. Please pronounce it correctly. Okay. You're not.
You say so. I mean.
So Chick-fil-A is a privately held corporation, and it definitely has surprised a lot of people when they did the DEI announcement.
Right, and so. But he's said some stuff like this in the past too. So there's been some suspicions. There's been a lot of people have already had dropped or canceled or whatever Chick-fil-A. There's a limit to how many things we can cancel. There's a limit to how many things we should cancel. So I guess we're coming up to Pride Month, right? So stores they're gonna stock some shirts with Pride colors on them. That to me is not a big deal, right? My thing is, what are you aiming at kids? What are you doing that tries to make, tries to lure kids, right? Because like, as a hetero person, right, I don't try to lure kids into hetero. I let kids not have anything to do with sex, right? I let kids grow up innocent. And when they get old enough, they make whatever choices they make, and that's up to them. And hopefully it's undergirded by some moral, moral standing, right? They understand the morality of what they're doing and the ethics of what they're doing and so forth. And then they make these decisions. And, I understood all that and did not make all good decisions. And, most people have some that they would like to take back. But, those are adults, right? And they were not preyed upon as kids by cynical people who are into weird stuff, who want to draw more people into their weird stuff. I think that's what people are trying to prevent. So as long as, to me, it's like my advice to my fellow conservatives is you have a lot of people with you if you talk about preventing filth from getting to kids. When you start talking about being gay is bad, you lose a lot of support because most people don't think it. You don't have you have much choice about whether you are gay, whether you are attracted to people your sex or the other sex, right? That's not a thing that we're going to, the country's going to help you fight. The country will help you. The country is proving with some consistency that it will help you fight filth sprayed on kids, directed at kids, right? Everybody from Loudoun County to Disney to Coca-Cola is finding this out. And Budweiser is finding this out, right? They do not want things aimed at kids.
Look, Budweiser, going to the trans person and then creating that can for which that influencer then put out there confused a lot of people, angered a lot of people because a lot of people thought it was like it was going to be a national advertising campaign. It was a one-off deal, but it was a mistake, I think, for them to go there because they didn't
pay full price for that stunt, man.
Yeah, they paid a huge price because, and people have to understand. We see these headline numbers about all this, how these corporations have lost, millions of dollars or whatever. Remember, this is market value. This is not cash out the door or whatever it is. It is their stock price of their company, how much it's fallen since the controversies, came out at first. So it's, it's the market reacting. Now they are getting hurt. I think sales are trending downward. They're they've
given it away basically.
Yeah, they're having a lot of trouble with that. Coors and those other guys are gaining some traction, some market share there. So the beer drinkers have a choice, right? They can shift. It's not like Bud is the only thing in the world. If they get mad at this, they can go ahead and say, okay, I'll go ahead and have I'll go to Molson, I'll go to Coors, I'll go
Miller
to
Lite. Although Miller Lite, they put out a
right.
weird commercial on their own, right?
Yeah,
it was all about like we didn't have women, we wouldn't have beer. It's like women's rights and beer. It's like.
Yeah, and
even if true, I don't care, right? I really don't care. Like if there was a woman making beer 400 years ago,
right? And we have had, we've been going on for quite a while there, where these corporations have embraced the LGBTQ, agenda in terms of it. Disney has basically had their, you can go to a park on a certain day of the year or whatever, and it's very welcoming to LGBTQ community. They have a very pro LGBTQ, policies for their employees. And so do a lot of major corporations. Target, you're right. Target has problems. One, it was the thing going towards the kids, the Satan guy designing the stuff, this idea about the tuck-friendly bathing suits for the trans. You get into this, and then one of the things that that offends me a great deal is that they doubled down. They basically backed up and they doubled down on their their support of GLSEN as a partner with this. So this is what is now called the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. When I first started watching that with a former colleague of mine, Pete LaBarbera, it was the Gay, Straight, Lesbian Teacher Network. So it's a GLSTN. They've just changed the T to an E. This organization is not some innocent LGBTQ organization. their agenda is strictly aimed at the kids. They
Yeah.
are going after our children and our grandchildren and trying to convince them that you may be gay, all this kind of stuff, all this normalization stuff with 6, 7, 8-year-olds. This is not what none of us want that.
No, we don't want that. And here's the thing about it. It's like straight up numbers, right? It's not about hate, right? If you are not comfortable in your sexuality, that you're what you are inside at birth, your risk of suicide goes up almost 50%. Okay. It does not make these people happy. It makes them miserable. And it ends up making you unable to reverse the stuff you do, and usually unable to reproduce. You can't have a kid. So, you're wanting little kids who are upset, always, trying to figure out their identity and who and what they are in the world, confused about this stuff and fighting themselves about this stuff and ending up on a life that's a pathway to sadness and to despair. And anybody who's wishing despair on someone, I've got to just wonder, like,
yeah, look, I mean, I think I was at a Walmart, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago or whatever, and they had a display, gay pride, the pride display in the middle of an aisle. And it was a bunch of different things, flags and pins and whatever. And I'm like, my feeling is kind of like, well, okay, it's like, but it's not killing me. Nothing, I'm still going to be shopping at Walmart. If they've got stuff I need, I'm still going to go there. And it was not such a thing where they were overtly marketing to young children or doing anything. It was a bunch of kind of harmless flag, pride merchandise that I have, I've just said, this is part of what's happening. I mean, you mentioned how Walmart's been doing this. Do I really care if you sell a T-shirt with a gay pride flag on it? No, I don't have to buy it. I will not buy it for my grandkids and stuff like that. But it's not something that's a huge issue for me about selling the merchandise. If people don't buy the merchandise in the end, the stores will stop selling it.
Correct.
They've tried to kowtow to the gays and people who people want to support that. But if the merchandise doesn't sell, then there'll be less of it, in the long run anyway. But I do have an objection to Target partnering with the groups that are targeting young children. That's off limits to me. That's out. That's out of bounds. You're not going to do it. Now, as I think I said on Facebook, when a friend of mine was former intern of mine, friend, who I'm guessing basically by his attitude is, he's not into the cancel. He doesn't into the boycott stuff like that at all. And I'm like, I really don't shop at Target. I don't really eat at Chick-fil-A as much as I used to, and stuff like that. I don't drink beer, so that doesn't, I don't have to worry about that. So, most of the stuff does not going to affect my daily life on a retail consumer purchase basis, but it is a little bit disconcerting to me to see something's going on there. Now, you mentioned, and so okay, now
I'm going to get to the doctor.
Looks like Bob is going to. It's on our list, Bob. So it looks like we're going to have to go there. Thank you, and we'll do that in a second after I get off my soapbox about Chick-fil-A and the DEI thing. Is that they got into trouble when with some of the things that they had done before, so they backtracked to be a little bit more LGBTQ friendly, right? This DEI thing, I think, is another part of that. My initial reaction is that people, I don't know whether or not the people, the corporate, some of the, the Truett family people that are, that own Chick-fil-A, whether or not they've actually looked at DEI and understood where the roots are. They need to go and study that, because if they understood that, they would not create this office. And DEI is just evil. So, it shouldn't be that. All right. So Bob has now elevated the next segment of this. Kind of, it was down further here, but I think we're going to have to talk about it since he brought it up. We're both baseball fans. Clayton Kershaw has come out.
So let's back up. So the
Dodgers did the right thing to me when they disinvited the sisters. What is it called again?
Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. So for those of you who haven't followed this, the Dodgers were having a Pride Night, which a lot of these organizations do.
Which is
actually,
which I don't really care.
Yeah. So I don't care. Like, I think that the line to be drawn there is, and the hockey people have sort of found this out, is don't make the players endorse it, right? The players having to put something on their jersey for that. That's a player saying, I am pro-gay. And they shouldn't have to be declared on that, right? They shouldn't have to make that statement. That shouldn't be asked of them either way. So the Dodgers had a Pride night, and they invited among their guests this group called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which they dress as nuns, and they're sacrilegious. They're making fun of the church, and they show up and they do their trans thing, right? The Catholic League of California and Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, which is not all that close to Los Angeles, wrote letters saying this is offensive and we shouldn't do this. The Dodgers agreed to knock them off the schedule. The gays in California went nuts protesting. Dodgers put them back on the schedule. Clayton Kershaw then went to the Dodgers and said, this is not right. You had it right before. Clayton Kershaw is one of their pitchers. He's one of their best players. He's one of the best players in all of baseball. Grew up in Dallas at the Highland Park High School, which is where John Hinckley went. It's also a pretty wealthy area of Dallas. One of his teammates was Evan Gattis, who was also a major league player for a long time. But he's a Dallas guy. That's where he's from, and he kind of did a Dallas thing there and said, the faith is important. So he went to the Dodgers and said, if you're going to do that, then if you're not going to cancel them for being directly sacrilegious of another faith, then we should have some kind of faith night. So now the Dodgers are having a faith night, which I don't ever remember. Like the Astros do that, Texas does that, Kansas City does that. I don't remember the Dodgers ever having a faith night.
They have. I went back and looked at that. Apparently they did it in 2019 was the last time they did that. Both Kershaw and Dave Roberts talked about their faith.
Good.
But
Dave Roberts has got a cross in the office, and so he's a holy man too. So he extracted that from him anyway. Yeah,
the thing is that if you're going to do the Pride Night, and the Dodgers have already done faith nights before, to me, I mean, I'm glad that they're going to do the faith night, but it is kind of like the Dodgers are like, in order to balance this off now, they felt the pressure. Right. They did this. They should have been doing this beforehand anyway.
Well, and they shouldn't. There's a lot of things you can do with a Pride Night aside from, insulting Catholics, right? Yeah. The other things going on, right? It's open season on Catholics right now. I don't know if you noticed that there's been a spate of reports. One of them was Maryland, where it's Democrat state attorney generals putting out these reports that say there's been X amount of cases of clergy abuse, sexual abuse of parishioners. We're putting out this report. Look at all these priests who've done this. So the one Archdiocese of Baltimore, which is not quite all of Maryland. Like, for instance, Ocean City's in the Diocese of Wilmington, Delaware, for some reason. The PG area is in the Archdiocese of Washington, right? PG, and I think Montgomery too is Archdiocese of Washington. So it's not quite all of Maryland, right? So it's 600 cases. So they give you this whopping number, 600 cases since 1940. So 600 cases in 83 years, okay? And so, the point that I've made is, so I go on the internet one day, they were talking about this, and I'm like, there's a report, the Department of Education did a report in the Bush administration that said that public schools were 100 times worse than the Catholic Church in terms of sexual abuse of kids. Right? Oh, well, that's Bush's Republican apparatchiks, right? But then people started just dropping in. It's supposedly in the last 5 years, it's just exploded. Teachers sexually assaulting students, right, has exploded in the last 5 years in this country, right? So to me, it's like, so they're rushing out these reports. They did it in Illinois. It was 2,000 cases of abuse in 73 years. And then somebody puts up and says, well, Chicago has had 2,000 cases of abuse in the last 2.5 years, right? Which is less. So, so what they're getting to is, the problem is public schools. for abuse. The Catholic churches, they had their problem with it, and they did move some priests around rather than firing them and so forth. But what they've done now is they're very, very strict about it. And even the lay people like me, if you're going to have any kind of lay leadership role, you have to go take these classes and stuff and go undergo a background check. And I mean, all the precautions they can do. Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, they know exactly what they're doing on the statistics, right? They're trying to make a little number look big, right? They know, it's coordinated. And it's now these attorney generals on all these Democrat states are going to start putting this out. And it's just an attack on the Catholic Church. It has no relevance. There's no news event it's tied to. It's just an attack on the Catholic Church.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the church has really tried to make an effort, I think, to try to fix this and correct this and take care of this. So, and it's cost them a ton of money.
It's cost them a ton of money.
Yeah, it's cost them. But, the thing that I really get ticked off about this whole thing about this, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, because the fact that they're trying to make it seem that they are sisters. I mean, there's some reports as, they're trans and queer, nuns. I was like, no. It's like, no, see, this is the problem. I mean, it's like this is blasphemy. This is just really terrible. This is a horrible, horrible thing. And the Dodgers the Dodgers need to realize this, is that, they cave back into the gay community. I mean, Target, they're getting backlash for, because they're starting to remove merchandise. The gay community is, there's backlash from them. It's like, they can't win for losing on this, but, they made certain decisions of who they're partnering with, and, they're going to have to deal with that issue.
That's right.
But the, in the gay lobby, I mean, they're not that big, but they are loud.
Right. But there's also, people are starting to do a little math on this. They start to realize that at the end of the day, when all this started, right, about 2% of the people in the country were thought to be gay, right? 2%. That's gay. That's not trans and all this other stuff, right? That's just gay. The whole arms around it all, 2%, right? The trans is a small percentage of that, right? So now, the trans, who are the gays have never been all that comfortable with the trans. They're not sure that really fits with them, and for a lot of reasons that are pretty good reasons. That whole group was 2%. So, and they were a sliver of the 2%. So, people are starting to say, okay, we're making a lot of concessions for, maybe 1% of the population, right? We're going bending our nose out of a joint a lot for that, right? And so, people tell me, the sports thing comes up. That girls, the boys playing in girls' sports, right? And people say, well, let's make a separate league for them, right? Trans kids league. And, and I tell them, I'm like, I would be willing to coach that, but you could not find enough kids to make enough teams to do this, right? They just don't exist, right? There's just not that many guys who want to pretend to be girls.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there isn't. I mean, that's the thing about it. It's just, it can be a tough situation at times, but I think we understand, what's going on here, and we're not being, we're not going to try to be mean to this group, but for heaven's sakes, I mean, they back, 20, 30 years ago, they would always talk about, well, the gay population, that's 10% of the population. They got to listen to it. But every time they actually would do these studies, they'd find it be like at less than 3%.
Yeah.
And that's, so you got this really tiny number with this very loud speaker, right? I mean, they have the bully pulpit here, and they really have hit a lot of these corporations, people over the head for a very small thing. And the media has just bought into this. They think that this is a huge voice, and it really isn't. That it's just that they're loud. I mean, they're very well organized. I will say this: they're organized that they can make this, and they can make these things happen. So I'll give them credit for making these things happen in this sense, but. They represent a sliver of the population, and yet they're treated by the media and by liberals as if it's like some huge percentage of the population.
Well, the leftists, I think that it's like, there's no known principles or ideals, right? They're just basically, they're against what we're for.
Yeah.
Right. That's basically defines liberalism as much as anything else. When to take from you and give to other people, and we're against whatever you're for. and because no ideas emanate from there. So when you say that, when you think about it in that context, right? Why are they so adamantly, militantly pro-gay, right? Because they think that it hurts us politically. What they're finding out is it hurts them politically.
Yeah. All right. We got 8 or 9, 10 minutes here. What do we got here? Let's go back into. I want to get into the presidential race a little bit and talk about different things. So while we were off, I mean, Ron DeSantis made his official declaration, went on Twitter Spaces with Elon Musk. And Twitter Spaces, for those who people don't know, this is an audio only deal. This is not video. And yet they had lots of technical glitches. They were overwhelmed. A lot of people wanted to listen in on this, but Elon Musk, they couldn't quite make that work at the beginning. I guess they've smoothed it out. Eventually, somebody else came in and they moved it to another account or whatever. There was a report I heard that one of the problems was that Musk slimmed down Twitter so much he fired everybody but like 3 people who was working in the Twitter Spaces part of the corporation. So he didn't exactly have a big staff he could go and say, "Fix this now."
Well, here's the thing. It's like, it's sort of my thing about DeSantis is, not really quite ready for prime time. Close, right? He's on the right stuff, right? But, here's a guy, he needs to finish his term as governor, and, more seasoning is needed before he's ready to be president. And I think this showed it. I think this was kind of a amateur hour thing. It's like you try to get cute and do something that's not traditional, and, nobody ends up seeing it, right? I'm a Twitter hound, and I've never gone to Twitter Spaces for anything. Right? I'm not going to sit and watch stuff like that, right? Or listen to it or whatever. I just don't.
It's not
like that.
I have never listened to a single Twitter Spaces thing. The Twitter Spaces came into being because somebody created a thing called Clubhouse, which was popular during the pandemic for a while, which is an audio only thing, and all kinds of. I mean, celebrities were actually dropping in on these random conversations, and people loved it. And so people thought, oh, Clubhouse is going to be the next big thing. And I think the people behind it thought, okay, we keep this going and growing. We're going to take this company public. Twitter came in there and created their version of it. And, the pandemic wound down and things like that. And people are like, well, Clubhouse, I guess, is still around, but it's just the shell of what it was before.
Right.
Twitter Spaces. Until this DeSantis thing, I didn't even realize it was really still around because I just didn't pay any attention to it. Musk can do a lot for you. I mean, Musk wants to have more of these kinds of things with candidates. But to me, if you're going to make a presidential announcement, I mean, it needs to be the visual thing anyway. So right. I think DeSantis was wrong in the end. I mean, it's hindsight too, to go this way and eschew the traditional methods of doing things. He would have been a lot better off. Now he raised a lot of money. He's out there. We're going to be able to see, once he gets into Iowa and things like that, he starts hitting the stump. How ready is this guy to do this? He's great in Florida, but will his message sell much beyond Florida, in these other states? I don't know. I mean, Trump has been able to build, at least in the polls, a humongous lead. And I don't know whether or not, DeSantis is going to be, how much he's going to be able to cut into that. Will they get closer? I think they'll get closer, but how close is questionable.
Right. So Trump had a town hall on CNN, which is the lowest rated of the news cable networks, and has fallen even further behind since. He got about 3.2 million watching it. DeSantis at the most had 700,000 that were trying to watch it, not that got to watch it, because a lot of them got kicked out or whatever. But all the people who tried to get into this, the total is about 700,000. So he didn't really generate the interest. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, you can say what you want about these networks, and yeah, you're right. They're a lot less relevant. They're a lot less solid as the sort of gatekeepers of the information that we know and so forth. But the fact is, I mean, that's still where most people get their information. You like it or not, but as far as I know, Tucker Carlson has had basically nothing to say since he was kicked off of Fox, right? I mean, I don't go to these things where he's given his little speeches and stuff. As far as I'm concerned, he's been off of work since then. He's off in the hills somewhere, right? And so, like, that's if you want a voice, you're going to have to find one of those people who's on the cable systems, and not just the Newsmax is on every 8th cable system or whatever, but people who are on TV everywhere there is a cable system, and you've got to be on that. You have to get on that. They still have that power, because most people are not going to like sit there and watch TV on their computers, right? They want to flip something on, sit back on the couch and watch it on the screen. And, you're asking for many, many steps past that. So, I don't know if we're technologically there where Elon Musk or anybody of his ilk can be a player in TV, versus even the most wobbly of the cable news networks.
Yeah, look, I mean, Nikki Haley has a town hall with hosted by Jake Tapper coming up right on CNN. Mm-hmm. This is for her. This is going to be a great opportunity. I mean, this is earned media. She's going to get basically a free ad to go out there and and hopefully she does for her sake a good job. But she's going to get this airtime. CNN, does she have any love loss for CNN? Probably not, but it's going to give her eyeballs and give her campaign a shot that would have been expensive to do otherwise. So,
right. And CNN right now is the equivalent of these teams that we're going to get bad for a few years so we can draft and get good players and come back, right? Because what CNN is, they're in a situation where they're behind all the other, even the leftist networks now. They're the last place of the leftist networks. So what they're saying is we're going to go back to trying to be a credible news organization because the other people are not credible, right? It's MSNBC is a obviously left wing rag, and Fox has its own problems and so forth. So if one of them came out and said we're actually going to cover the news on both sides and talk to all the people on both sides and represent their views as fairly and accurately as they can, there's probably a market for that right now because there's no. The extremes all are going to these other people, right? So, I don't blame them for taking shots on Trump, Nikki Haley. They're now talking about doing Trump again. I think people want to hear from Trump. And I think that, at any given moment, if you're a Democrat, he could say something that disqualifies him, right? He may say something that means, Biden can't win. He may say something that means he can't win. And, because, he's Trump. So, it'll be, I don't blame them one bit for putting them on TV and trying to, get people to watch.
Yeah, no, all right. So 2 things on Trump I want your opinion on. One is his comment about birthright citizenship, and the second one is his railing on Kayleigh McEnany, his former press secretary.
Birthright citizenship, I do not think he can change that. I think that at least requires legislation. I could be wrong. Maybe it's something that maybe legislation allows for the executive to do that, but I'd be highly surprised. And if you did do it, you'd end up in court for a long time. And I don't think that's the right approach, right? That's not the problem, right? It sounds good. You're stomping these guys down, but it's not, if someone gets here and they have a baby, that baby, that's our baby, right? That's an American baby. And I don't think, then you start saying, okay, how did you get here? How long did you get here? What were your intentions when you came? Think about all the crap you'd have to discern if you go this way. So I'm just saying, I don't think there's a lot you can do that's a lot more productive than that. The other one was McEnany. I think like most of the people that Trump runs afoul of from time to time, they will not be apart long, right? He's just saying, I guess he must have called her and said, that poll you're using is not fully informative of my commanding lead in this race, and you should use the numbers that show me way ahead. And she's like, well, I'm going to use the numbers they told me to use. So, he lashed out, and, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he should. I mean, I don't think he needed to get upset about that. I mean, he's the poll either way, he's leading by a wide margin, whatever poll you cite at this point in time. So I don't think one showing a slightly smaller lead is some major deal.
Well, he wants to make you aware.
Yeah,
poll. Well, and he did. We're all saying, okay, there's 2 polls, or there's 2 results of this one poll, or whatever.
Yeah,
one of them shows Trump even farther ahead.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I found the things I found amusing about this was one is that he called her milk toast and spelled it incorrectly. Okay.
That's pretty funny.
Someone needs to teach them how to do that. And the other thing was just the conservative reaction about how they were criticizing Trump about this. Is like, look, so here's my take. Just basically is that Trump really doesn't have a lot of loyalty to these people anyway. So you run a little bit. He's going to criticize you. She's not the first, and she's not the last. Okay, there's going to be more.
Right.
So don't get overly upset about this because there's more to come. This is Trump.
Right. And remember, like, how many times he's fallen in and out of love with Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
If he's elected president and McConnell's the majority leader, they will be in love again.
Yeah, well, he'll throw if it suits him, he'll throw you under the bus if he needs to. Okay, and then he'll bring you back, dust you off,
and bring you back. That's right, and dust you off. So, he forgives. He doesn't hold a grudge.
That's right. Just really quickly before we get to our final things here, it's just North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. I didn't even know who he was. Is going to apparently enter the race here in the next few days. It's like, I'm like, why?
That's exactly what I said when I heard that Chris Christie is going to take another shot at it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, Trump will be Trump. That's right. So there's a lot of people now going to take a spin at it, right? Just see what they got, see what's out there. Right now it's not all that expensive. You're just basically taking the candidate around, You're basically paying for somebody to travel around, sleep in hotels every night. But there'll come a point where if you're not attracting interest, you won't be able to stay. I don't know what the governor of North Dakota would want to do as president. So, I will hold my fire on that. Maybe he's for all the stuff I'm for and, he's the guy. But, the fact that everybody's reaction was who?
Yeah.
Kind of tells you that it's an uphill battle for him.
All right. Let's close it off. Last word. What you got?
Let's see. I was going to look at our little list here. We covered a lot of this stuff. So I did want to say, Tina Turner, that was a tough loss for me as a kid who grew up listening to her. So that's definitely a sign that I'm getting old. Henry Kissinger turns 100. I don't know that. I think his star's kind of been, as far as I'm concerned. The greatest diplomat of Henry Kissinger's lifetime is Jared Kushner, right? He solved the Northern Triangle problem. He solved the Mexican border problem. He had the Arabs and the Jews working together against the actual proper, appropriate enemies. I don't think anybody's ever done much in as little time as he has. But that's just me. And what else was on here? The National Energy Regulatory Commission warns of blackouts west of the Mississippi. I think we know why that is. I think that they've choked off supply, especially what NERC does is regulates pipelines, and that's been a real source of problems for this administration and try to limit pipelines and cut them off. And, so now it's like every place the pipeline passes through, you have to have an environmental impact statement for that particular location. So that, they're saying, okay, you could say every 10 feet, I have to do another environmental impact statement. I could keep paying for these statements, forever and never get my pipeline built. So, I think that's what, I think that's an agency that needs to be reined in and reformed in the worst kind of way. And let's see, is there anything else on here that I wanted to say?
You better do it quickly because I got to wrap it up.
Okay. All right. And I guess that's it for me.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you found it useful and entertaining. As always, please stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. Hope you had a great Memorial Day this past weekend. And we have more to look for. We've got Flag Day coming up in a couple of weeks. And programming note, we'll have to be off next week. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. But then we should be on a regular schedule after that for a while. So thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks a lot for contributing your thoughts, Bob, as always. And we will see you again.